Oh, hello everyone, and welcome back to Suzerain, Kingdom of Rizia, where last episode we made a deal with the devil. Okay, we are not spending money on trade with Velen yet, and we're still negative on. Maybe the trade we were doing balances out. I don't know, but yeah, we are only -1 on energy. We really need that energy production to kick back in. Otherwise, we're gonna have to start. Gonna have to start buying shit. Otherwise, it's extended to Vesex. Preliminary deal. Cage's economic growth slows to 5%. Valen announces support for Rizia's Arias claim. Zilla handover officially postponed. Rumburg affirms alliance with Rizia, expresses support in suppose that's any case or AN case. Ato voices concerns of his gas field blockade. Okay, what do we have to do? Okay, something's happening in Monteclar. Yeah, he was discharged from hospital. Should we fund the resistance? No, I'm not fucking funding Suomina. Fuck you. We are going to increase funding to the Ariana Torres Association. And luckily that was only one wealth, not one wealth per turn. Otherwise we'd be fucked. Okay, gathering of MITZ. Yes, field the decommissioning. We are running out of energy. This is not good. Environmentalists celebrate. Yeah, it would be nice if, but it would be nice if we had the fucking dam already finished. Okay, MITZ board members. The thrum of helicopter blades was almost deafening as we prepared for our descent into the Meftium International Trade Zone. I looked out the window. We were above the Meftium Basin, an expansive dried-up lake containing millions of years' worth of sedimentary deposits. The past decades of industrial activity had turned it into a mosaic of underground and open-pit mines linked by roads, railways, and makeshift canals. Smoke rose from the surrounding refineries, turning the sky a musty shade of orange. My eyes followed the cargo-laden freight train as it departed the Meftium station. Next to me in the helicopter, Elena noticed it as well. One of Lespia's, by the looks of it, the gold will be shipped out of the Mordian port and reach Vena Robin by this evening. And from there, straight into Prime Minister Alvarez's pockets. With one or two detours in between, but yes, Alvarez has no small personal stake in the operations here. I recall you took a rather pro-Morella stance at the Alliance of Nations session. Are you still leaning that direction? I mean, yeah, I want to respect Morella's wishes, but we can't ignore the MITZ's great economic importance to our kingdom. No, we can't. I'm sure we can reach a compromise that doesn't result in a total loss for us. I mean, the way I see it, if Morello wants us to recognize their claims, they might want to look on us with a little bit of favorability. We gently touched on the helicopter in the Corporation Center, the building where ITZ board meetings and other diplomatic functions were held. We were immediately met by a large security retinue and ushered inside to the reception hall, where the welcome ceremony was to take place. Alma Sultana greeted us by the entrance. The security staff member showed Alana to her seat, while I followed the Morellan Prime Minister to the front of the hall. Thank you for coming, Mr. Torres. I mean, Mr. Taurus? The fuck do you mean? Comrade Sultana. uh, Prime Minister Sultana, pleasure to see you again. Elio, I hope you've been well since our encounter at the AN. I'm glad to hear you were able to reach an understanding with Velen. It gives me hope for today's talks. Sure. If you're as open to negotiation as President Smolak was, I don't foresee a problem. I assure you that I am. She just wanted me to follow her. I'd like to start straight away, but my advisors have persuaded me that diplomatic protocol must be followed. A stage had been set up backdropped by our country's four flags, but Jose Alvarez was already sitting there, looking somewhat bored. I took my place next to him. He didn't acknowledge me. Sure. Good afternoon, Mr. Prime Minister. Greetings, Your Majesty. We both fell silent. I noticed a certain blurriness in his eyes. I wondered where his decision to quit drinking had lasted. The hall began to fill up with dignitaries, ministers, and heads of corporations. Rusty Montoro was in the back row, talking animatedly to a Lespian politician. He didn't so much as glance in my direction. The doors to the hall suddenly swung open. Emmerich Hegel entered, accompanied by a pair of bodyguards. He and Prime Minister Sultan exchanged cheek kisses. Alvarez could barely disguise his look of scorn. They're not your friends, you know. They're out to bleed both of us dry. Yeah, have you ever considered that we might deserve it? He gave me an incredulous look and turned back towards the cameras. Sultan and Hegel joined us on stage. The Valenslandian Chancellor shook my hand with an encouraging smile. Sure, let's speak in private. Good to see you, Chancellor. Actually, I was hoping we could speak in private later. That very much depends, Mr. Torres. The four of us posed for photographs, the Morellan national anthem was played, then those of Aldsland, Rizia, and finally Lespia. That shows who takes what priority, doesn't it? It's just a ceremony, Mr. Alvarez. Don't read too much into it. When the music died down, we were escorted to a conference room together with our key ministers, security detail, and a number of legal advisors. Once we were seated, Prime Minister Sultana spoke. Thank you for carving time out of your schedules to join me today, gentlemen. She looked around the table at each of us. Over 35 years ago, our countries signed an agreement regarding the sharing of resources in the Meftian Basin. At that time, Morella was capable neither of exploring the full potential of the gold located here, nor of fending off raids from our Durdian neighbors. It was only with the cooperation of Rizia, Valsland, and Lespia that the international trade zone could become the thriving industrial center it is today. However, our predecessors failed to recognize the social and moral responsibility that comes with such an economic endeavor, and Morella paid the price. Uh, we haven't, but it's high time for us to revisit the original agreement. I'm afraid my government will not be satisfied with cosmetic adjustments to the IMITZ contract. All of us, Morella included, have benefited from a contract that allows us to pay ITZ workers less and grant them fewer protections than in our individual home countries. At the same time, the area around the trade zone has been turned into a dumping ground for toxic chemicals to the detriment of our water systems and the people who depend on them. There is only one way forward. The MITZ must be restored to Morellan ownership. Alvarez audibly scoffed. Is this actually what you believe, Miss Sultana, or are you just parroting the words of Chancellor Hegel? Please calm down, Mr. Alvarez. You may disagree with the Morellan Prime Minister, but that doesn't give you an excuse to belittle her. You're right, of course, but my question still stands. Current cooperation between Morel and Valzland is based on mutual respect. There is no string pulling. Eh, yeah, mutual respect should impact the shared objectives of the trade zone. Every nation here should be treated with equal regard. If the nations of Rizia and Lespia are willing to listen to my wishes, I have every intention of returning the favor. Chancellor Hegel and I have begun work on a proposal to transfer ownership of the MITZ to the Morellan state. The assets currently owned by Valzland, Rizia, and Lespia would be purchased by a new Morello-owned company, formed specifically for the governance of the MITZ. Each country could then have the opportunity to buy shares in that company. The Republic of Valzland has already agreed to forego that opportunity. Sultan nodded. Should Rizia and Lespia choose to buy shares, they could still continue operations in some capacity, albeit under strict oversight and with more input from workers. Yeah, sure. You have to understand that I have Rizia's own interests to think about. If I am to agree to such a proposal, I have to know that our economy will remain stable. It is not my goal to bankrupt any of you. We're willing to make to make individual agreement with each stakeholder to offset any economic damage done by nationalization. Should we vote to proceed with my proposal, I will solicit each of your input. And if you vote not to proceed, what then? Then we'll have to go back to the drawing board. In the case of a split decision, we would have to renegotiate the initial ITZ agreement until a way forward is found. But Morello will no longer accept the status quo. Nor will Valgland. Well, Lespia stands firm on our convictions that the ownership of the MITZ should not change. If His Majesty knows what's good for his kingdom, he'll agree with me. Everyone seated at the table turned to look at me. Elena cleared her throat. Are you ready for the vote, Your Majesty? I have a few more questions. For the board. I don't wish you to take this decision lightly, Mr. Torres. What else would you want to know? Sure. Alvarez, if the nationalization vote does not pass, would you still be willing to address the complaints Prime Minister Sultana has made? Of course I would, Your Majesty. He sat up straight. I would just like to point out that what a towering achievement it is that AMTZ exists in the first place. 4 countries with 4 vastly different governments coming together for the economic benefit of all. It all sounds preposterous, yet it works. The cooperation, yes, competition, involved in sharing this valuable resource has not only brought our nations closer together, it's spurred innovation far beyond that what any of us could achieve individually. We could harness that same spirit to address the very valid concerns Miss Sultana has brought up about the environment and human rights. He shrugged. Or we could throw all of that away, scare off investors, and put God knows what many people out of work because why exactly to score a few points with our Eastern comrades? Sultana and Hegel both had icy stares in their face. You are doing Morella a disservice by resorting to such a gross oversimplification. But not an inaccurate one, right, Your Majesty? Mr. Torres, if you meant what you said at the AN, you shouldn't even be entertaining this option. Sultana glanced at him uncomfortably. Whatever is decided today, I am willing to work with both Rizia and Lespia. Our differing outlooks shouldn't get in the way of peaceful compromise. Sure. I don't see how the benefits of nationalization outweigh the drawbacks, especially where Rizia is concerned. If one only measures benefit in terms of profit, then yes, I admit our proposition is hardly advantageous. With that said, centralizing the MITZ and restructuring its Operations with a view towards sustainability will serve us all well in the long term, as will fostering goodwill between the nations of Rizia and Morella. Sure, I agree that a stronger bond between our nations would be a benefit of its own. We are historical allies. I see no reason why we cannot renew our bond. Hegel looked disgruntled. Morella is only now embracing its full potential, Miss Sultana. Settling yourself to a monarchy will only make you weaker. Rizzi has treated us with respect thus far. I hope King Rome is the same. Sure. Why is Valdzon only supporting nationalization now? Why didn't you hand your ITZ stake back to Morella right after the revolution? A valid question, Mr. Torres. Valdzon's socialist values indeed took a back seat to economic stability in the early years of our republic. But more importantly, the prior leaders of Morella could not be trusted to manage the MITZ with compassion and consideration. Giving away our stake then would have done more harm than good. Uh, Compassion and consideration are vague terms. How would you prefer the MITZ be run? Just Miss Sultana's coalition to develop a system in which the miners themselves have a greater say in operations. I am prepared to help them develop it myself if necessary. Something like the Volkslandian labor union system, then. Hegel and Santana looked at each other. I believe so. The successes of Volkslandian labor union federations in the agricultural and manufactural industries speak for themselves. We will have to discuss that. Of course, unionization would be in the best interests of the workers, but we will need to maintain operational consistency, especially at the beginning of the transition. Sure, you have the right idea, Miss Sultana. All your efforts to make workers happy will be in vain if you don't have any money to pay them with. We are getting ahead of ourselves. These details will be discussed once the nationalization plan is voted on. Okay, let's talk about the river pollution. I doubt the situation is as dire as you claim. Oh, I'm pretty sure it is. You are mistaken, Mr. Torres. At the beginning of ITZ operations, companies like your Rizian Royal Gold were allowing their wastewater to drain directly into the Arufele River. Techniques have been refined since then, but the damage has lingered. Toxic chemicals continue to leach onto the river's watershed and are slowly poisoning the surrounding communities. I might add that the river empties into the Gulf of Mordia, which is bordered by Rizia, Durdia, and Velen, as well as my country. Any plan for nationalization or otherwise must address this. Yes, I agree. Our nationalization plan would not only mandate stricter environmental oversight of the mines, it would allocate a portion of revenue to cleaning up the river and aiding the affected communities. Uh, sure, let's engage into here. Look forward to discussing the specifics. We'll have more in-depth discussion soon after the vote is concluded. Okay, ready to move forward with my decision. Very good, Mr. Torres. And by move forward, you mean would like to confer with my treasurer before casting my official vote. Those at the table glanced around impatiently. Prime Minister Sultana nodded. I understand. We set up a separate room for you. The rest of us can break for coffee. The group dispersed. Elena and I were seated in a smaller private conference room. Before we continue, Your Majesty, I do think Miss Montaro should be privy to this conversation as well. Oh, he can go fuck himself. Don't we already know what he's going to say? Well, yes, but he certainly wouldn't appreciate being left out of this decision. We do operate our part of the MITZ using equipment and contractors from Rizin Royal Gold, after all. Fine. Let's bring him in. Elena notified an aide to send it for Rusty. A few minutes later, he appeared. Your Majesty, Elena, have you tried Morel and Shakar biscuits yet? They're drier than a letter from my ex-wife's divorce attorney. We are here to talk about biscuits, aren't we? Because, as far as I'm concerned, the nationalization debate doesn't merit a discussion. Elena raised an eyebrow. King Ramos here is the leader of our country. If he says a discussion is necessary, then it is. Pardon me, but the last time we had one of these chats, it didn't have much of an impact out in the real world. Sure. I listened to your opinion and took it into account. What more did you expect? Lennon nodded in agreement, then glanced up at the clock. We don't have long. Where would you like to begin, Your Majesty? Sure. What will be the economic and financial impact on Rizia if Morelia goes through the nationalization plan? That depends on the exact nature of the agreement, doesn't it? Even if Rizia buys back its former shares of the MITZ, Morello's planned regulations will limit the revenue we can earn from it. But by privately negotiating the proposal terms with Prime Minister Sultana, we may yet be able to make an arrangement where we come out relatively unscathed. That'd be a real risk, Your Majesty. RRG already almost went belly up after we lost Zilla. Add that to the cost of implementing those new regulations you ordered, and well, nationalization could be a killing blow. At the same time, we are facing high gold demand from Murnberg and soon Velen. With little in the way of gas holdings, it would be difficult for Rizia to carry on as a resource-based economy. Maybe that's for the best. Both of those resources would deplete eventually anyway. Not within either of our lifetimes, but eventually, yes. What was Rizin Royal Gold's role in the labor and environmental violations that have occurred in the MITZ? Rusty's mouth dropped open. Violations is what they're saying. First of all, I will remind you that Rizin Royal Gold never made our own decisions in the MITZ. We only acted on behalf of whoever wore the crown. All we ever did was follow the rules. What incentive would we possibly have for going above and beyond? So the Rizin government engaged in worker exploitation and toxic waste dumping simply because it was allowed to. Sure. Miss Werner, you advised my father. Did you never want to speak to him about this? Lena's face went taut. It was a hard time for Rizia's economy. We were under pressure to keep gold prices competitive, especially after the uprising. Prime Minister Sultana's predecessors agreed to keep regulations lax in the MITZ to attract investment. All four partners took advantage of that, Morella and Vogsland included. Think about it, Your Majesty. If it hadn't been for the MITZ, the economy would never have recovered from 26. The populace would still be sore, and the monarchy and the dearly departed Princess Lena would never have laid a hand on your royal scepter. Lena looked appalled. For God's sake, Rusty, be more respectful to your king. What I mean to say is, you're welcome, Your Majesty. Yeah, go fuck yourself, Rusty. I recall you made the same case against safety regulations in Rizia. I didn't buy it then, I don't now. Oh, we did lose a pretty penny for those regulations, but we just about balanced it out with royalties from the mines here. If we lose that, don't blame me. Sure. Nationalization doesn't seem reasonable to me. What's your opinion? Nationalization agreement doesn't seem beneficial on the surface, but I can see a few possible perks. Elena, how could you? I'm not saying I support this plan, only that it need not be a disaster for us. Any nationalization plan will still need Rizia's support to go through. That means we'll be in a position to make demands. What we lose in gold, we could gain by making a good energy deal, for example. Sounds like I got my money on the wrong resource. An energy deal will be a better long-term solution than relying on gold mining in a foreign country anyway. As long as we have energy to offer, that is. There's one other possibility. She lowered her voice. We not only buy back Rizia's share of the MITZ, we purchase Lespia's out from under them. Rusty grinned. That is a plan I can get behind. Sure. Push Lespia out of the MITZ and increase our gold returns while we're at it. Great idea. Don't think we have the money for it, but it is a great idea. It's just a thought, Your Majesty. That was everything I wanted to talk about. You sure about that, Your Majesty? I'm very happy to talk more about the long-term negative impact of nationalization. Elena shook her head. No, we've taken enough time here. We should reconvene with the others. All right. He locked eyes with me. Good luck with the vote, Your Majesty. He motioned for the guards to escort him, but out to the reception hall. We headed back from the conference room and settled back into our seats. I'm ready to proceed with the vote. I'm happy to hear that. Sultana motioned her secretary to take notes. We'll use an open voting procedure going clockwise around the table. The Republic of Morella casts his vote in favor of nationalization. The Republic of Valsland casts his vote for nationalization as well. Prime Minister of Lespia, being of sound mind, casts his vote against nationalization. Of sound mind, are you sure? It's my turn. Prime Minister Sultana leaned forward eagerly as Alvarez eyed me warily. Sure. As the King of Rizia, I vote in favor of nationalization. The international trade zone should be under Morellan ownership. Hegel applauded solemnly. A wise choice, Mr. Torres. History will reward you for it. I am as surprised as I am grateful, Mr. Torres. I look forward to collaborating with you on a fair proposal. Turned to look at Alvarez. He had an artificial smile on his face. I know when I've been defeated. You can count on my cooperation. I am absolutely brimming with suggestions. I'm sure you are. Sultana rose from her seat energetically. We should inform our guests of the good news. Let's get back to the reception hall. Russian, Valkslandin, and Lespian delegations slowly began filling out of the conference room. Next to me, Elena spoke under her breath. Brave choice, Your Majesty. We'll have to drive a hard bargain with Morella or risk disrupting gold production. Ideally, yes, but this isn't about gold production. It's about doing what's right. Noble thoughts from a noble man. As Alvarez and I stood up, I saw him take another sip from his flask. He noticed my gaze and nodded slightly. So you sided with the commies in the end. You surprised? I made my intentions clear. Not surprised, disappointed. First your naval shenanigans with ballet, now this. You really started to test my resolve, King Torres. He stepped past me and out the door. Hegel was still seated. I could feel his eyes boring into me. Sure, let's just smile at him. Give me the same mysterious smile as he had before. We walked back onto the stage of the reception hall and awaited Prime Minister Sultana's announcement. Excellent. Now, hopefully, I do want to sell things. Because we need money. Yep. Sell more military equipment. Okay. We need to purchase some energy. Like to sell something more so we can afford to do things. We don't have anything to sell, unfortunately. Okay. New report highlights poor state of Rizian transit infrastructure. That doesn't sound good. Election campaign funds. Ah. No. I'm not gonna fund them. But the internal security meeting is going to have to be left for next episode. Thank you all very much for watching. As always, I have been Pope. Please do remember to like, comment, and indeed subscribe. I will see you all next time.